Good morning. I'm Katie Dutcher from Flourish and Bloom and Monterey Bay Meditation Studio. And today's fairly short practice is about settling the body and really kind of resetting the body. Um, I know that for a lot of us, we kind of have certain habits during the day with our body. So for me, it's kind of hitching up the shoulders, and especially for some reason, the left shoulder. And so if I'm not mindful of it, if I'm just kind of working, um, that that can kind of stay in that tensed up neck and shoulder position for most of the day, which ends up with me having neck and shoulder pain. But if I can be mindful of it and kind of reset once in a while, really once an hour, I think is what I've been told would be helpful. Then that just kind of it, even if I kind of come back up to that position again, if I reset every once in a while, it can help feel better overall. That's one way that this can be a helpful thing to do throughout our lives, our daily lives. But also, this is important in how we set up for meditation. I think part of the reason that guided meditation can be so helpful is that there's somebody who is reminding us of kind of how to ease our way into the meditation, which we may not always remember to do on our own. So I wanted to just take that part, which is often the very beginning of the meditation, and make that the meditation for today. So for today, I'm gonna spend a lot of time, more time than normal, on setup. So go ahead and begin letting yourself get comfortable while you just let this play, and I'll be talking because there may be adjustments you make along the way. So you may want to lie down, and if you're lying down, you might just think about what would make this lying down even better, even more comfortable. And one thing that I would do if I was planning on lying down for a good bit of time. Oh, I'm going to pause for a second and just say that there is again construction now in the other apartment on the other side of us. Earlier in the year, it was that side. So anyway, from time to time there may be loud voices or noises, and that's just part of what's happening today. Um, anyway, back to lying down. So one thing that might be nice is a pillow, even just a small pillow from the couch, or a towel, just rolling up part of a towel. And so if you can put that just behind the curve of your neck, that can help support and just really feel good. And then another thing is thinking about underneath the knees, particularly if you have any soreness or tension in the lower back. You may want to think about putting a bolster or um, something else underneath the knees, again, to just realize that you don't want the knees to be locked, and so maybe lifting them up a little would be supportive. If you don't have a kind of a bolster or like a rolled up blanket or a stack of pillows to put your knees on, another way to do it is just to bend your legs. So you can bend your legs, and then what I do is separate the feet and turn them in a little bit. And that lets the knees fall in toward each other so that you're not really concerned with or engaging energy to keep the knees locked and not falling over. So knees bent with feet on the ground and kind of turned in will help. So letting yourself get set up if you're lying down in that way. If you're sitting up, you might want to begin thinking about how your back is positioned, how your hips are positioned, your knees. Um, for me, when I sit on a cushion, without any back support. One of the things that I've started to do just over time, as one of my knees is a bit more sensitive, is I have a little rolled up blanket or something that I put under my one knee just to support it because it doesn't want to quite lay on the floor. So I support that knee, and I notice it if I don't. Often I'll have more trouble with my legs going to sleep if I don't do that. So it, whether today or just overall, letting yourself think about what is supportive to the body, um, because that the the way that we support the body shows care for ourselves, and then it also just helps. Sometimes it helps us to actually focus in on the breath or whatever we're paying attention to in our meditation. Um, you can also think about if you're sitting on a cushion or something that doesn't have support for the back, just thinking about the way that you line up the spine. And so the positioning of where your hips are versus how your spine is coming up out of the hips. Um, Little angles make a difference. So whether you're finding that you're leaned forward or leaned back, that has to do with all the muscles that are engaged in the back and the front of the body. Ideally, you could get to a position, and you might want to play with this, where your spine has a little bit of that natural curve, your hips are raised above your knees, and the spine is just rising straight up, so everything's just stacked up and not back or forward, and certainly not to one side or the other. So you can let yourself actually play with this. It's worth it to try this. If you're sitting in a chair or a couch like I am, again, you might just think about how you're sitting. Sometimes I'll put a pillow behind my back, again, to kind of support that curve of the back. Another thing for any of us is, and especially if your back is against something, to kind of consider the shoulder blades, especially when I'm lying down. If you find yourself with the shoulder blades separated, you might just think about kind of tucking the shoulder blades in together so that you don't feel any kind of strain on that shoulder joint as you're lying or as you're sitting. With your head, I remember my first teacher talking about the crown of your head um, pointing up toward the sky. So that can often mean just a slight down tilt of the head, so that highest part of the head can come up toward the ceiling or the sky. So once you're in whatever position that you're in, you can let your eyes close. And there's time here to still make adjustments. Letting yourself, perhaps as you tune into the body, even make some movements that might be needed. Maybe you're doing this meditation in the morning, one of the first things that you're doing. Maybe it's somewhere in the midst of the day. Either way, it can be really nice as you sit here to just kind of tip the head forward if you're sitting, and to just roll over toward one side, allowing the side of your neck to release. And then rolling again towards center, just slowly. A couple of rounds here. Coming back up to neutral whenever you're ready. And just knowing that while traditionally meditation is sitting in stillness, if it's needed, if there's some kind of stretch or tending to the body that's needed, just moving through it mindfully with awareness of the movements, of the sensations within the body, that's mindfulness practice too. Moving meditation. You might even bring your shoulders up to your ears and then let them come back down. We're just rolling a couple circles toward the back. And then coming back to stillness whenever you're ready. Continuing this attending to your body. Really tuning into the body, sending the attention. It's like you're sending your mind into your body, filling up the interior of your body with this curious, open awareness. And you'll begin perhaps to receive all these little messages from the body. This message, warmth here, chilliness here, tingling here. Achiness here. Neutral sensations, just some part of the body announcing its presence gently. Upper leg is here. Aware of how the body is nestled against something. Perhaps you can feel the texture of the surface of a yoga mat or that pillow or towel behind your neck. Perhaps you can feel the softness of a couch, the firmness of the floor. feeling parts of the body in contact with each other. The arm resting against the torso, and a little bit of warmth created there by this contact. Perhaps the legs are folded against each other. Even the two lips meeting. There may be certain places where the message is a message of some tightness. And there are ways of working with this, of just being with tightness, tension in the body. One way is simply to notice it, simply to acknowledge there is tightness here. And as you do that, there may also be a possibility of softening. For example, when I check in with my neck, I notice some of the muscles at the back are holding, just kind of contracted. And I kind of breathe in space in this area. And in doing so, I find that just naturally my chin wants to dip down a little bit. So it seems like I'm allowing these muscles to release by not holding my head in that slightly cocked upward posture. This is just one example of what's occurring for me in this moment. And perhaps for you, there are other very small or large areas that you can sense into in a more and more focused way, aware of sensations that are perhaps very subtle. Here is where, too, it can be helpful to work with the breath, to let yourself take a really full breath in and to really feel the expansion through the body, and then to let it out slowly and completely. And as you let it out, this releasing can be more than just releasing the breath. There can be perhaps some releasing of other muscles as well as a part of this exhalation. Trying this a few times. with that out breath, just a melting downward ever so slightly. And then allowing your breath to just come back to its natural pace. And perhaps spending some time here, still sensing the body, but paying attention to the sensations of movement in the body right now. Feeling this soft movement of the body as the breath moves in and moves out. In a moment, I'll ring the bell. So I wonder how that felt in the body. So often, I'll speak for myself, so often I have a habit of ignoring the body, ignoring the messages from the body. So often I think of my body only when it is has been pushed past the limit and it's feeling very tired or hurt or something like that. And that's when I think about it and maybe tend to it. But I work with, and I think a lot of us are now working with connecting in more, actually being in our bodies, just as we're also in our minds, because there really is not a separation, and the more there's integration, the more we are actually able to kind of prevent the effects of the negative effects of stress on the body, to do this, what we talked about, resetting, giving ourselves a chance to kind of come back to our natural and healthy posture, and all of that, just just can feel so much better. Um, I know too. I'm aware that some of us are working with, living with pain, really perhaps intense pain, or just lingering pain, and so that when we tune into our body, it may not always be a pleasant or neutral experience. And at the same time, there is some value in being with what is uncomfortable. And I didn't really touch on self-compassion in this meditation, but that is something that I would add, especially when you're working with pain, is that just adding some kind of tenderness within your awareness. This just tenderness for yourself, for your body that's in pain in some areas. So thank you for being here, and I hope this will be of use to you, whether at the beginning of your meditation as you settle in, or just as a way to think about resetting throughout the day, especially if you're doing some kind of desk work or something like that. I'll see you next week.